Good evening. Good evening. It's such an honor to be here, not just because we just launched the Invisible Ache, Black men identifying their pain and reclaiming their power, but it's also the 6th anniversary of Mommy Vance, Courtney's mother's transition. She died 6 years ago today. She was a librarian. Librarians are educators. And so we are here in her legacy, Daddy Vance's legacy, which we're going to talk some about, my parents as well. But I wanted to start by honoring your mother.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much. It's how beautiful that and she worked for years in the main library of Detroit. So thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. And I was hopeful that my sister, Ceci, would be here, who just retired from FedEx after 40 years. But she said she lives in Waldorf, Maryland, and the commute in here, she said, I ain't doing that. I ain't doing that. I love you, Courtney, but not tonight.
Right. She thought we were going to see her in the afternoon, and then when she realized this was tonight, she said, that's not happening.
That's not happening.
Right,
I said, but Cecily, she said, Courtney,
right.
That ain't happening.
That's not happening.
I love you from a distance.
Right. And this is actually what we're here to talk about tonight, aren't we? About boundaries.
Hey, Tangie.
Yeah, about how much we sometimes try and please other people and forget about ourselves, about the ways in which Black men have not even been on their own list for self-care. So, and Black boys, the ways in which Black men have been pushed and pushed themselves in ways that run them in the ground. And ways also that we were in New York, we were in Baltimore yesterday and in New York yesterday too. But there was a young man in New York at a radio station, and he said to us, I don't have the luxury to take care of myself. And how often have we as Black people said, I can't take care of myself? We actually wear our exhaustion. And usually I'm saying this to Black women. But now we're talking about Black boys and men and Black women and girls as well, that we can wear our exhaustion like it's a badge of honor. Girl, I'm so tired. You don't know how tired. And we nurse that thing about being exhausted and never ask ourselves, if I'm so tired, why is it that I'm not figuring out how to rest? And so when this young, very articulate Black man who had been to prison a couple of times and was sitting behind the mic in a radio station telling his story, who said he didn't have the luxury for self-care. And Courtney and I said to him, you don't have the luxury actually any longer of neglect, because there is a price tag that none of us can afford to pay that comes with neglect. And just before we go into Courtney's story, and he shares how this book came to be and the story and legacy of his father's death by suicide, I want to give you a quote to kind of nurse tonight, which is, the lion's story will never be known. And Derek, you were sharing this. The lion's story will never be known as long as the hunter is the one to tell it.
Amen.
And so we're here tonight to invite you to begin to become your own narrator, your own content creator of your own story, and no longer let the hunter, and the hunter can be it can be parents, it can be systemic racism, it can be the voices in your head that now are like a predator against you from the inside out. So we have a journey that we're going to make with you tonight. And Courtney, maybe you want to just start talking from where you are.
Yeah. just a blessing to be standing before you with this. Wow. And it's and that's the blessing for me is that Tangi, we grew up achieving. That's what we knew. I knew how to do is to just go to the next level and I guess I did all right. It did for 37 years. I climbed the ladder, and Angela and I met at Yale, and and then Daddy, that was the first thing when my father. I was doing 6 Degrees of Separation on Broadway, top of the heap, Tony nomination and second one, and then I got that call from my mommy, hysterical, that Daddy had shot himself in the house, and and for 30 years I was able to, I knew something was going on in the house, but I was able to, go away and not deal with it. Even though I know my daddy, he needed me somehow. I can't
Court,
be too close.
they want us to sit. They want us.
I don't want to sit.
They want us to sit.
We like to stand.
We stood last night.
We stood for an hour and a half last night.
We stood.
So
I mean,
you need us to sit because it looked better.
Because of the cameras,
Oh.
and it looks better.
Oh, because we stand in front of the D.C. Public Library. Courtney, stop messing with us.
Well, listen, and he wanted us to sit without my putting
Okay.
him on blast,
Okay,
that
here
he
we go.
told us to sit down.
Remember how, hold on.
Oh, okay.
One, 2, 3.
Yes.
And so, I'd gotten away with it. I'd gone away to school, and and who knows what was going on at home, But when she called, I didn't completely unmoored, and so we went home. My sister and I, for a month, we were home and getting the affairs in order, and we kind of, it was a lot, of course, and then we were getting ready to leave, and my mother said, Courtney and Cecily, I want you all to when you go back, we all have to go in to find therapists. We got to get inside this thing. Mm-hmm. And my sister and I said, okay. But then, how do you do that? I don't know how to do that, but my mother asked us, our mother asked us to do it, so we're going to find a way. So, Dr. Robin, I didn't, crying my way back to New York, and she to DC, well, to Maryland, as they say. Maryland, and we got back here, and how do you find a therapist? I mean, I remember sitting in front of somehow I ended up in front of a black woman, just very, I said, oh wow, this is it, and I sat there, and Dr. Rahman, she just looked at me like I was crazy. I didn't know what to do. I don't know. How do you do it? How do you, I don't know. She just sat there looking at me. I'm looking at her for 45 minutes. And finally I had my head in my hands, and she said, do you have a headache? I said, no. I have a headache. And so anyway, but Laura Linney, because I came back to the show, 6 Degrees of Separation, and the cast, of course, just wrapped me up, and I used to get massages in between the matinee days, which was Wednesday and Saturday. And Laura Linney, do you know who Laura Linney is? She's a superstar now. She was an understudy back then. So Laura said, Courtney, I'd like to give you a gift of a massage. I know you go in between shows. I said, oh, Laura, thank you so much. So I lay down on the table with Gunilla Asp, Swedish, and she said, "Courtney, is there something I need to know about what is going on with you?" And I said, "Well, my father just died of suicide, and she broke, I broke, and we started and we finished, and at the end of the session, she said, I know I have the perfect person for you." And so that night, I had a dream. I don't know, whenever it was where I met my therapist to be Dr. Kornfeld, Margaret Kornfeld, God rest her soul, she passed away this year. That night, I had a dream, and something about, and I didn't have my dreams back then. It was unusual. So and then within the dream, there was a pattern of some sort, like the rug, it was a pattern. And I said, huh. So got up and went to the session with Dr. K. Kornfeld. And so I shook her hand. As soon as I shook her hand, I knew I was home. A little Jewish lady, 5 feet from the ground. Just, you'd pass her on the street and not know who she was, but that was my gal. So I shook her hand. I knew I was home. She said, "Courtney, there's, I have 2 office spaces to the right." I looked to the right, and there was a little kind of sterile room, and I said, no. But then she said, "Look to the left," and there was another room, and I walked through there, and I said, "Is that?" On the couch, on one of the pillows, was the pattern of my fabric that I had dreamt in my dream. So I said, "I know I'm home again," and started talking a mile a minute. Talked for a mile. I was just, and she said, "Court, you don't have to tell me everything today." And we, on and off, and then the other thing, and I'll let you jump in here because I know you have to. She asked me, she challenged me, she said, "Courtney, 2 things." She said, "How do you make decisions, Courtney? I'm 30. You would think I would know how to make a decision." Everybody knows how to do that. I just flip a coin. She said, "Oh my goodness." No, she didn't laugh. She just went, "Okay, Mr. Courtney, sometimes, that's great for acting, but for life, that could be devastating." So then she asked me, she said, "Courtney, do you have the 3 things? Do you have this is the second thing. Do you have the patience to let the mud settle in the water and the water become clear?" I said, "Absolutely not. I got to go, Dr. K. I got to go. I got to make a decision." She said, "Okay, all right," because sometimes there's nothing to do but just stand. And then the third thing she said, "Courtney, I'd like you to get your dreams." And I didn't realize till like maybe a month or 2 ago what the significance of that was, because that's how we met, off of a dream of mine. But and so I, figured out a way to, thank you, Holy Spirit, get my dreams. And I would bring it, and once I got them, the first time I got them, I brought in 35 dreams to her. Bam! Folded my legs up there, and I said, "Overachiever. Overachiever. Take that." And she said, "Okay, that's nice. Bring me the most powerful dream of the week, and that's where we'll start from." And, that's how for 3 years, we worked off my dreams. My whole life was centered around going to bed, because I had to go to bed by 9:30. The book is called Breakthrough Dreaming by Gail Delaney. And I had to go to bed by 9:30. And if I went to bed by 9:30, then I would sleep till 2, and then from 2 to 6, sleep solid till 2, and then from 2 to 6, I would wake up and get a dream, write it down, go back to sleep, wake, dream. And then we really, that's how we worked, and we were able to get to we went quite quickly because I wasn't editing. Yes, I think it's time for you to take over because I've gotten the nod. I've gotten the nod.
So
Yes.
what's interesting for me about everything that Courtney just shared, first, let's talk about his mother and what his mother did. And then we're going to talk about Dr. K and who she was, what she was wrapped in, because we can miss our deliverance because it's not wrapped in the way that we are sure that it has to come. But Courtney's mother, after his dad died by suicide, as he shared, said to he and his sister, we're going to all get help. She didn't say, you and your sister go and get help, and I'll be okay. Because a lot of times parents, you know this, say, do as I say, not as I do. And then we wonder why our kids, we wonder why our grandkids, we wonder why they're stuck. And they're stuck because they're, and this isn't to blame any of us. But remember, we're all here to start telling the truth tonight so we can get free, at least begin. So his mother did something radical. This was, yes, educated librarian, but these were black folks who lived and worshiped like many other black folks in that time. And she didn't do this spiritualizing kind of God thing. And I get to say this as ordained clergy because I can talk about my own family, both my biological family, but also the family of faith. That faith without works is dead. And so if we are looking for the manifestation of freedom, what work are you willing to do to get free? So the prayer, when people are saying they're praying for something, I'm thinking, well, pray for courage to do the work. Pray for strength to do the work. Because if we're wondering, like, why hasn't God moved? I mean, it may be because I'm not moving. And so God moves, and sometimes, you know, we are, there's a passage of scripture in the Old Testament about the Red Sea being parted. And the first time it was parted for the people of Israel, it was parted without them having to do anything, with the enemy coming after them. The second time, they got to the sea, and the water didn't part, and they were like, "What? How come it's not like abracadabra, like, right?" They had to put their feet in the water first. They had to not be sure whether or not it was going to open or not. They had to do the work. And if they were to drown, they would have drowned at least in movement toward freedom, which is very different than standing on the banks saying, like, nothing's happening. And the nothing that's happening, again, we're not blaming ourselves tonight, we're just telling the truth. Because this is true about me. There were so many times where things weren't shaking loose, but it may have been because I was holding on to what needed to shake loose. I wouldn't let things fall apart that had already shattered. And so Courtney's mother blessed his sister and him, not only by telling them to get help, but by saying, I plan to do the same thing. We're all, this thing that happened in this house, we are all going somewhere separately. And we're going to sit down. And this is what we talk about in the invisible ache. Not asking black boys and black men, does it hurt? But where does it hurt? And that invisibility, I believe, is the greatest harm to the soul. You know, whether it's systemic racism or something happening in our families that people won't address. Invisibility it's like a soul killer. It hurts. It hurts to be hurt and have someone deny that they hurt you. And part of what we're here talking about in this book and talking about tonight is even if someone denies what they did to you, are you going to go silent on yourself? Courtney talks a lot about doing the work. We were in LA a couple of weeks ago talking about the book, and it was a public event, so we're able to, with integrity, share this part of someone else's story. Don Cornelius, those of you who are old enough or young enough, because of social media now, everything that's old is still new now. But Don Cornelius from Soul Train, he died of suicide. A lot of people don't know that. 2012. And his son, Tony, we were with Tony. Tony moderated a panel that Courtney and I were a part of about the invisible ache. And Tony said to Courtney and to me, I'm afraid. I'm afraid to do the work. I mean, have you ever been hurt so deeply that you really just kind of hope that you never have to look at it again? And then he met Courtney. And here Courtney has not just written a book, but Courtney's done his work. And Tony said, I'm afraid, I'm afraid of what I'll find. I know that feeling. And what I said to the audience and to Tony and to myself, to Courtney, is that it's interesting that we're afraid to do the work of discovery, of, finding out what we need to know so we can get free. But it's interesting that we don't seem terrified to suffer forever. And why would we not be terrified of suffering forever? It's just simply because we've been conditioned for generations to be in pain. We've been conditioned to be invisible. We've been conditioned that we are only 3/5 human. So it's really hard to catch our brains up. We need some brainwashing, not the old kind, the new kind where we wash our brains of lies. Paul Lawrence Dunbar says we wear the mask that grins and lies. So the lie that I'm not fully human, the lie that black boys and men are not entitled to be hurt when people follow them around a store thinking that they might be stealing, or they go in their pocket and it's gum or it's candy and they end up dead. I don't know about you, but that hurts.
My father was, I'm sorry to interrupt
No,
you.
no, please.
My father was a foster child. So he was, his mother, we found this out after my father died, 25 years after he died, that with the Professor Skip Gates' show, Finding Your Roots, Angela and I did the show, and then the Vance side of the family found us in Chicago. They were in Chicago, so we went to Chicago. My sister and I went to Chicago, and we found them. And they were saying that our father's mother, Ardella, was looking for our father. Evidently, she had, on the I guess back in the day, maybe still today, the birth certificate, Ardella's children's birth certificate, her oldest son, Larry, on the child's birth certificate, it said, you know, how many, would it be on her?
Yeah.
On their birth certificate, on the children?
On your dad. I mean, on
Larry's birth certificate. It said the mother, how many, which is Ardella, how many stillbirths they had, you know, the woman had. And Ardella, on Larry's birth certificate, it said 6. And she had Larry when she was 15. So she had been messed with for 9 years, since she was 6 years, since she was 9. Yes. Math. And so the family. And mess with meaning abuse. They raped her. Yeah, yes.
Let us call a thing,
yep.
Right?
Call a thing a thing. She was raped. And so the family surrounded her, took Ardella's oldest sister took Larry, her first child, and then she had a second child, my father, but there was no one in the family to take him in, so he was foster child. He was in the foster system. And so there's a picture of my father. We have a little picture, and all the little boys and girls in there were fair-skinned, which meant the white men were messing with the black girls. And anyway, so except for my father was a little dark-skinned. So his whole life he thought he wasn't loved. He thought he was abandoned. And when things got rough, I'm sorry, let me turn over here. When things got rough, when he worked at Chrysler in benefits, and he was in charge of, this is in the 70s, he was in charge of firing 3,000 people at one plant and rehiring 3,000 people to replace him. And in the midst of that, he found out that he was going to be fired. So that was the final straw. He didn't even want to, he wanted the company to go under, but Lee Iacocca saved the company, and he wanted, you know, so he'd go to law school and benefits and Harvard, be paid for. So, you know, but he didn't know that his mother was looking for him. Mm-hmm. And if he had just been able to hold on, just hold on, baby, just hold on, we would have taken him to Chicago. Yeah. They would have found us all. We would have gone to Chicago, and they would have said, Conroy, you know Ardella was saying forever, where's my boy? Mm-hmm. They took my boy, because she lost her mind, and they took her down to Arkansas, from Chicago, took her down to Arkansas, and they were telling the story, the family was telling the story. She would always be standing around, where's my boy, where's my boy? They took my boy, what did they do, what they took? And they would say, Mama, stop. You know, they didn't know what she was talking about. And here you have, she lost her mind over her son, and her son took his life over the hurt. And, you know, the pain, I mean, that's what my mother did for us. Yes. She said, enough. Yeah. And that's the question that I have for us all. When we sit on the edge of our bed at 2 a.m, we all know what we're dealing with. We all know what we're up against. We all, you know, I heard my first love so bad, she said, Courtney, I don't want to talk to you again in life. Don't you ever talk to me again. And she got a restraining order so that I wouldn't be able to hurt of course she was hurt too, but hurt I said, that's not who I am. I'm not that person. So I couldn't go apologize, I couldn't say anything. So I had to deal with myself.
Well, you didn't have to, you chose to, because I want us to realize tonight that we do have the decision to stay turning in a circle and not let the mud settle and the water to become clear. And so you made a choice to not be victimized by your own suffering and by the suffering that you cause someone else. You decided, and you say this all the time, what you going to do? That's really what this is about. That's what the invisible ache is about. It's about helping create a safe space. That's what we're doing here tonight. That this is a safe space, even if you don't know who you are here with, who's sitting next to you. Is the space inside of you safe? For you to begin to let the mud settle. For the water to become clear.
And that's what we're saying, is that
Yes.
we have to make a decision that we have, and sometimes we have to, as David did, have to encourage our own selves in the Lord. There's not going to be nobody to encourage you. There's not going to be anybody to give you the license to take the time, to go out for the walk. I know I need to get some exercise. I know I need to drink some water. I know I need to go get that mammogram. I know I need to get my prostate check. I know. And you start where you are. Mm-hmm. You start with baby steps. And if all you can do first time through is just think about it, I'm just thinking about it now. Yeah. And eventually I'm going to get to the place where I can do something about it. And if you're feeling bad about yourself, first time, just acknowledge it, and maybe gradually you can seek somebody to, and it doesn't need to be professionally. Maybe it's Dr. Robin. You always talk about the lady at the hair salon.
Oh, sure, the hair salon, the barber shop, wherever it is that we can begin to tell the truth. That's what this is about. It's, again, where does it hurt? And am I taking care of that hurt? Am I neglecting myself? I mean, Courtney and I talk a lot in the Invisible Ache and also in our conversations with communities like this about worthiness. I mean, do you feel worthy? Because not does someone else think you're worthy. Not is the system rigged. I did work in the criminal justice system with juveniles, and some of the kids would come in with their pants, mostly African American, hanging off their behind, and had a pick in their hair, and talking about that, I'm doing me. And I said, okay. I said, do you know what Wall Street is? And they said, yeah, I've heard of it. It's like that place where there's stocks. And I said, yeah. I said, did you know that they're building really fancy air-conditioned prisons that are going to have like individual toilets in some of them? And they're building them for you to go from this little house to that big house, so that they can buy first homes and second homes and send their kids to school. So I just want you to realize that when you're going into court looking the way you look, they're doing you. You're not doing you. And so that was inviting them. I didn't shame them. I didn't blame them. I said, I just want you to know what's going on. That there's a game out there and you're the prey. And so we're asking you tonight, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And women, let me say this as a black woman. If you have sons, we just did an interview with a brilliant young black journalist. And I said to her, about her, we were talking about the invisible ache, and I said, when girls fall down, little girls, we pick them up and we kiss their boo-boos and we put a colored Band-Aid on it and, the black Barbie and whatever. Little boys fall, and we tell them, get up, stop that crying, shake it off, If you keep crying, I'm going to give you something to cry about. And then we wonder why our boys and why our men have separated from their vulnerability. Because they don't know that their vulnerability is part of their superpower, and it is also part of their divine humanity. Whole people hurt. I mean, they have their feelings hurt because they're whole. They have joy and they have sorrow. But 3/5 people who were workhorses, who were told to not feel anything, who had their families taken away from them, who watched their wives raped, who watched their there was no room to feel. But that was then, and this is now. So we're talking about we all have holes, Holes. Did you know that you have holes and all God's children got holes? And we're longing to be whole, WHOLE, which is a holy, an HOLY journey. Whole people have holes. And what Courtney is saying and showing you, and I am saying and showing you, is that a whole person can tell you about Emmy Awards, and they can also tell you about restraining orders.
I was, and I didn't understand it, but, the Lord is trying to get me ready, was trying to get me ready for 30 years from then, which is now, when my daughter calls me and says, "Daddy, I didn't have a good day yesterday. I'm feeling bad about myself, and I just think I need to stay home." And I said, "Baby, you stay right at home. Take your mental health day." And there was something that went down with her, with another little boy at school, and her brother got wind of it. Her twin brother got wind of it. And I said, "Son, what are you going to do?" He said, "Daddy, I know who it is. I'm going to talk to him." I said, "Okay, let's pray." And prayed with him and said, just keep me posted. Let me know how it goes. Which basically what I said to him was, you got this. It's time for, when he was 11, when my mother died of ALS after 4 years, and we nursed her at the house for 4 or 5 years. And he was 11 and almost 12, and he said, "Daddy, I don't want to go to Nana's funeral. I don't want to feel those feelings." I said, "I know, baby, but I can't protect you from life anymore, and I need you to go, and I need you to have my back, because I've got to get up and I've got to talk." And "I need to see your face sitting in the front row." He said, "Okay, Daddy, okay, I'll go." So, now to see him at 18, because one of the things, almost 18, don't go too fast, 2 months, and to see him be able, as one of my little phrases, if it wasn't for the people, this would be a wonderful world. Because you got to deal with the people. You got to be able to deal with people who agree with you, people who don't agree with you, people making fun of you, and you have to figure out. Here's my question: what you gonna do? Because you can't. There's certain things you can't do. I know I can't shoot them, I can't hit them, I can't cuss at them. So initially. So, wars are fought. There's war being fought, 2 wars being fought now over, and I just got to reading Golda Meir's autobiography, and just about how this woman who came from nothing ends up being the prime minister and involved in the business of man and womankind, starting the Israeli state. How does she, a woman in the 40s and 50s and 60s, there nobody, a woman running nothing, but all of a sudden she's running the whole, talking to presidents and on both coasts and Russia, and I said, that's what she was preparing herself for life. And my question for all of us is, you have no idea what's about to happen to you, but you ain't gonna be able to do it. God is like, I need you, Courtney. I need you. But I can't use you until you grow up. I need you to do something. That's why they call them the children of Israel, because they was churn. They wasn't people of Israel. I need you, Courtney, to grow up, step up. And that's what I gently challenged my son that day. I said, son, I need you now to take the first step. You can stay home. I can say, okay, baby, but not at 11. It's time now.
So fantastic. We have to shift to the Q&A portion of our evening. I'm going to take the first question, if you guys don't mind. And you kind of touched on it. Specifically for black men, the way that we raise our little boys to not to be vulnerable, to not to feel, to, be tough. What is that first step to get a person, to a black man, to begin to connect with his vulnerability? We walk around with I have to be macho, I have to be masculine, but you know what? Sometimes we fall in love and our hearts get hurt, right? There are things that pain us. How do we begin that process to be able to connect the two sides of ourselves?
Yeah, it's a great question. And part of what you're saying is, how do I learn that I'm fully human? See, someone who, where it says never let them see you sweat, and I always say that's great for a deodorant commercial, but it's terrible for the soul. It's terrible for relationships. So what is the first step is to have the father of that boy or the mother get in touch with their own vulnerability. Because so often what a parent is doing is they are pressuring their child to deny the parts of themselves, the parts of the child that the parent is uncomfortable with. So you're saying, how do I help a boy? Well, then I help myself. I do what Courtney's mother, she didn't say, go get some therapy. She said, I'm gonna get some therapy, and you all should do it too. So what would it mean for a black man to understand that it is colonized thinking? It's colonized thinking. It means that is something that was put on black people or taken away from black people to claim all of their feelings. Like, who is it that doesn't cry when they're hurt? I mean, who is that? Someone, Jesus wept, and he also got exhausted from being around people who complained. I mean, there was a lot. If you really think about what he was doing, he was like going up in the mountain and say, "I'll meet you there," because he needed a minute. He was like, "I need a minute. You all go ahead, and I'll meet you there." But it's so important for us to challenge. Why is it that we would ever tell a boy or a man, and this is also true for women, strong people don't cry? When I hear, presidents or leaders who are talking about painful things or they apologize if tears start to come up. You've heard people say, excuse me or forgive me when they start crying. I'm like, what would you be? See, we're apologizing for being human. We wear dark sunglasses to funerals, and we do all kinds of things to not show our humanity. So we feel like we can laugh, but I will tell you, if you have capped your sorrow off, you are also capping your joy. It is not until you can weep fully that you can also laugh fully. It is not until you can love fully that you can also lose fully. That's a whole human being. And so we're talking about re-educating Black men and boys and the women and people who love them. That we say we want a man who shows all of his feelings, but when he shows up with all of his feelings, some of us want some of those feelings to go away. We want him to still be the knight in shining armor instead of a whole human being who is sometimes a knight and sometimes raggedy and sometimes just like we are. Yeah. So is there another question?
Any other questions?
Hi, I'm so excited to be in the room with both of you, Dr. Robin. I've been following you since the Oprah days. Courtney, I told my pastor in the movie of my life, you would play his role. You would play his role. But today, the interview with Young Jeezy and Nia Long dropped, and they talked about a lot of what's being talked about tonight. And Dr. Robin, you just touched on a point that they also made about women wanting men to be vulnerable, but not knowing how to then deal with that because we have also been conditioned a certain way. So what are some steps that women can take to create that safe space for their men to open up to them and feel safe and still feel masculine and still feel like we respect them?
That's a beautiful question. And what's your name? Rose, my mother's name. Thank you for such a soul-filled question. And Courtney, I'm sure, probably has something because he knows a lot about his journey with Angela and his journey before. And he has a daughter, son and daughter that are twins. But I will tell you that if you said, tell me one thing I can do, that women can do to create a safe space for their partners, their husbands, their sons, their brothers, it is to take great care of yourself. And we have an interview coming out on Saturday. Oprah was gracious enough to do a primetime interview, and that'll be out on Saturday. We were with Gayle King yesterday. If you didn't see it, you can see that online as well. But Oprah asked a similar question. And I said, for women to take care of themselves. And this is the reason. Because if your pot is full, you're not going to be on him to fill you in a way that is not his job. And so as he sees your joy and your freedom with him, but also outside of him, as he sees that you are filling your own tank and that you actually have some reserve now for him, it's not even the conversation. You don't have to say anything. He'll watch your tank getting full, and he'll find that you're bringing that full you, Rose, to him, creating safety, that you have enough to hold whatever it is he's bringing, all of his complexities and the things that he's struggling with. But it's hard for a man to do that if he feels and he sees the look in our eyes that we're needing him to be more than what he is. Yeah. Court?
Yeah, and I had a double whammy in that my wife was an international superstar. So it was very difficult to actually, try to figure out how to serve. It's not about money. I'll never make as much money as she does, so it's not about money. And I had to, it wasn't until I recognized, I saw in the 1 Peter 3:7, live with a woman according to knowledge that they are the weaker vessel, not weaker in strength, as I did some, research, not weaker in strength, but emotional. That women are emotional, that your prayers are not hindered. So I said, wait a minute, so you're saying that if I don't attend to the emotional needs of her, my prayers will be, that I'm, for the family, for every, it will be blocked. I said, I got it. And so what started to happen was I stopped saying what she wasn't doing and acknowledged her for who she was. That's who I married. That's who I married. Okay. And then I turned my attention to him. Did all the stuff I was supposed to do, all the stuff, brought, I knew she liked flowers in the house, so on Tuesdays went to the flower mart and, brought, put flowers all around the house every Tuesday for 3 years. And focused on, and as I was focusing on the things that I needed to do, and I stopped focusing on, well, she was gone all day at the movies and didn't check in with me. I said, she grown. She was doing that before we got together. She don't need to check in with me. She'll be all right. Let me focus on the thing I need to focus on. If she needs to, she knows how to get in touch with me if she needs to get in touch with me. So let me focus on it. And as I stopped messing with her, she started to turn her attention. Well, how come he didn't check on me? Is he okay? Where is he? What's he? Oh, he's upstairs reading that book. And gradually, and I knew it had flipped when she said, when somebody asked her, I was there, we were together, and they said, Angela, no, she said, somebody said, Courtney, here's a book, it's a great book, and she said, give me that book, he ain't gonna read that book. My husband is in that Bible, that's the only book he reads, he's reading that Bible. I said, wow. And I acknowledged that I had, I know it had something to do with it, but I had nothing to do with that other than focusing on what I was supposed to do. And that's my journey. That's my story, is that I'm in prep mode for the future. If I hadn't done the work, the marriage would be gone. The children would not be here. There's no, God will always find a way to get, to maybe further down the line, but he will use somebody else to do that. Don't you ever think that if you don't do it, it ain't gonna get done. He will have somebody else in that place, and you will be out and doing something else, maybe something smaller, because you're not ready for solid food. You're still dealing with milk, mush. So I'm just trying to, the question of, and what started to happen is that we started to compete with each other to do for each other, and the relationship turned around. It wasn't about you supposed to be, and she ain't supposed to be doing nothing but staying black and
All right,
that's
we have
all. Okay, I'm sorry.
over here, real quick.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank both of you all for coming out tonight. And as a newly published author, I commend you. I wanted to come to your book signing because I am a longtime fan of you and your wife. But I wanted to ask you a question because me, as being a published author, I found some of my greatest healing through my writing. So do you think you writing these books, your healing process is starting to begin? or did you find more healing when you were just going with the therapist? Because I noticed that most of the people that go through the most hell, God uses us to tell a story to heal other people. So I really commend you for writing this book. I am anxious to read this book, but my question to you is, have you found any healing through your writing like I found in mine?
Doc, I just be amongst people. I found that I'm in the business of, as John Donne, Martin Luther King's favorite poet, said, I'm in the business of mankind and womankind, humankind. And I'm just trying to do his will. And in doing that, I get healed. Other people see me doing what I'm doing and what we're doing. And we'll do other things together. We'll do things separately. We'll come back together. We'll do it with other people. And in the midst of that, you know, it happens when it happens, or it doesn't. You know, every day. Some days it's nothing. I'm just whew. And the business of we didn't know when we began this book what this book was going to be. You know, the business of sharing, we found out, you know, that we could talk forever. Just that we don't need no moderator. We had a moderator one time here in D.C. Were we here? We were here. We were downstairs somewhere. Gilda, we were downstairs somewhere, and there was a moderator in between us or over to the right, and for 2 hours we were talking, and she got one question in. She had a whole list of questions, and we could, okay, one second, I'm coming right back to you. Doc, did you really think that? And it was like, whoo, and she came. And so, Courtney, just one more thing. So, and the audience was just roaring because, you know, it happens when it happens through the writing, it happens through the talking, it happens through the sharing, it happens, you know, on the street. You know, people coming up to me and saying, and to Doc, I mean, one person came up to me after I did a movie. I played a drug dealer. This was 25 years ago, and I was in the subway in Manhattan. I was, you know, and I thought they was coming up to me and tell me, "I just love your work, Mr. Vance." He came up to me and said, "I just love your work, Mr. Vance. Don't you ever do that kind of role again. That is not you, Mr. Vance." And he went on about his business. I was like, okay.
Well, I mean, not that but when that person will see, if you haven't seen, which is the new role, Heist, yes. Showtime, Heist 88. That's quite different as well. Jeremy. Yes, Jeremy is the name of that character. So if you haven't seen that, I think what's important about this, and I know we're closing, is Courtney's roles in front of the camera really are an example of all of the many faces and places, not just of his life, but all of our lives. It is the drug dealer and the preacher and the preacher, actually the preacher's wife, and then the genius Aretha, and those were two different kinds of preachers. And all of that lives in us. All of those faces, the things we're proud of and the things we are terribly ashamed of. The way that we have been victimized, and also, we've also been predator to people. Did you know that? You can't just be victimized. You've been a predator to someone. I have. We've all done that. And it's important because the invisible ache is about a courageous, compassionate encounter with what hurts and with what is waiting for you in your glorious, victorious life. So we know we're at time. We're past time. We know that. We're going to let you do what you do. But thank you for this moment. Thank you for, we both take time very seriously because time is the one metric that you can never get back. So wasting it and not learning from it. And so thank you for allowing us to be your students. Maybe your teachers too, but to be your students and to be in the classroom.
Yes, yes. Put your hands together, guys, for the incredible Dr. Robin and Courtney B. Vance. Some quick housekeeping before we head outside. Everyone's book has already been pre-signed by Dr. Robin and Courtney B. Vance. So we will have a photo line available for you guys. We will also have, there are additional books that are for sale as well as some that the library has to give away as well. But real quick, what I would love to do is for everyone who has a book, well, everyone to come to the center, we're going to do a real quick picture with the authors and everyone hold up their book. All right. We're going to have a nice little IG moment real quick. Have my Ms. Brianna come on up, our operations manager. She's going to take a picture. So if Courtney and yep. Okay. So you come. Yeah. So hold up your books. Yep. All right. Or